Now that we have our book jacket document set up using the template, we need to add a few more things to it in order to make sure that it outputs correctly. So we set up some guidelines that indicated some margins, some bleeds, and some folds. And it's important to remember which is which and not to get confused. So for the spine, we have these two fold lines, these inner lines here, and then these outer guidelines are for an internal bleed for the front and back covers. Then we have our fold lines for the flaps, front and back, and there's three guidelines here. The middle one is the line for the fold. The wider one, the one with the wider area, is an internal margin, and then this other one over here is a internal bleed. So let's zoom in so we can see what we're doing. We're going to place some fold marks that the printer can use as a guide, because once this is printed and trimmed, the printer will then also fold the book jackets. Alright, so let's go to the line tool and let's make sure that we're on our fold guideline, and let's position our cursor 1/8 of an inch above the bleed guideline. Hold the shift key and drag about 1/2 inch. And by default we get a 1-point line, which is too wide. We want ours to be 1/4 of a point. We want these to be skinny. And let's check the color. So the color, we want to make sure that the color is registration. We don't want to use black, which is probably the default. Registration is a color that will output on all of our separations. So we're going to, in order to get this document printed, the printer would separate it into each one of the CMYK colors. And registration is a color that will appear on all of the plates. Black would only appear on the black plate. So make sure registration is chosen. And let's change the style of the line from solid to dash. Let's use this dash with the wider gap. So the positioning of this, we want to make sure that it's accurate. So if I click on this guideline, I can see what the position is. Let me go ahead and select that, Command C to copy it. I'm going to select my mark that I created, Command V to paste. Okay, and then hit Tab, and it adjusted the position slightly. So I did that by eye, and I was pretty close, but it wasn't exact. Alright, so we're going to create another one. And what we can do is we can select the one that we just created, Command C to copy. Let's go to paste in place. There's a keyboard command for that, but let's go ahead and just choose it from the menu. That will paste our copy directly above our original, which allows us to just go ahead and click and drag, hold the shift key, and then we can drag it over to the next position. Alright, so again, we want to make sure we have this accurate, so let's click on our guideline to see the position. Go ahead and Command C to copy. Select our line, and maybe I had that right. Let's see. A little bit off. Okay, so hit Tab to set that, and my line moved very slightly. Alright, so now I've got two fold marks on the top part of the document. I need two more. I need a fold mark for the fold of the cover, and then another fold mark for the fold of the back cover. So let me go ahead and Command C, paste in place, hold Shift or click and drag while holding Shift, drag that over to our fold guideline for the back cover. Click on the guideline to get the exact position, copy it, click back on our fold mark, and paste that into the text field. Hit Tab and see how it moved a little bit. Okay, so we want to make sure that we're as accurate as possible. I'll do it again for the other one. Okay, this one is at 0 because my ruler is set at 0 on this guideline. Okay, so let me make sure that that's at 0. Okay, see, I was a little bit off, so I'm going to type in 0, hit Tab, and we can barely see it move. Okay, so if everything went well, and see, mine didn't. So what happened was somehow I didn't. I moved my original. Let's see something here. Oop. All right, so something happened when I was copying and pasting where my original mark went down into my guideline. So if that happens, then just drag it back into place. So all the copying and pasting can get a little bit, something can go awry. So if that happens, just make sure that you replace that mark. So there we go. So we've got 4 printer's marks on the top of our document. Now we need to have the same thing at the bottom. So what we can do is just click and drag over all 4, and we can even group these together. Don't have to, but why not? Command C. Let's do paste in place again. Click and drag our copies down to the bottom. All right, and it should be 1/8 of an inch beyond the bleed, but you can only really know for sure if you zoom in. So let's see. Okay, there's 1/8 right there. Okay, so we've got our fold marks, and they're barely visible when I zoom out, but they're very important. They need to be included on any kind of a print document that's going to be folded. All right, so what we need to do is to save this as a PDF. I mean, you're going to save your original document, your original InDesign document. You always want to make sure you do that, but then save as a PDF. What we're going to do is go to File. This is when you're all finished, so you're going to design it as best you can, and then when you're ready to hand it in, you're going to hand in the PDF only. So Adobe PDF presets, go to high quality print. You're going to save it, you can save it in this same project folder. And if I hit save, I get some options for marks and bleeds. Let's just choose all printer's marks. We don't really need these bleed marks, but let's just leave it on to make it simple. And we want to make sure that we customize this bleed. So we want our bleed, the part of the document that is outside of our print area, we want it to incorporate or encompass our printer's marks. So we want to make this wide enough. So we can make it a 1/2 inch. Let's make sure you do not have use document bleed settings checked, or it will only show the bleed and it won't go beyond that, and it'll cut off our printer's marks. So let's go ahead and just we could type in 1/2 inch. That should be good. Hit Tab, make sure it's 1/2 inch all around, and then choose Export. And that, when that opens up in our Acrobat, we can see we've got several printer's marks, and our crop marks, or our fold marks are included. There they are. All right, so it might be easier to see if I place some kind of a background on here. So let's assume that you're going to use some sort of a background color that's going to go across your entire document. And I'm not recommending that you do this, but just for the sake of seeing what we need to do in order to set up some kind of a background. We want to make sure that we click and drag from the bleed, assuming that it's a full bleed. In other words, your color or your image goes all the way to the edge of the page. Remember that it's got to extend 1/8 of an inch beyond. And let's say that our color is going to be this magenta. And maybe let's just make it kind of like a pink color, just to illustrate how you would want to set up a background color. And then let's go ahead and save it again as a PDF with that color on there. And let me rename this. Well, no, let me replace it. Okay, replace. Make sure marks and bleeds are checked. Put on that 1/2 inch bleed to include our fold marks and hit export. Okay, and when we open this in Acrobat, we can see our background color. We zoom in, we can see our fold marks. We can see the crop marks that are automatically placed. We can see some registration colors, registration marks, and this is what we want. So you want your bleed to go into these bleed marks, if not or into these crop marks. All right, let's try something else. So let's go ahead and see how we would set this up if we were going to, let's say we're going to use different images on our front cover and our back cover. So let's say our front cover and back cover are full bleeds with some kind of a background image or background color. This is how we would set that up. So here's the fold guideline, and here's the internal bleed where the image on the background cover goes around our book boards and bleeds a little bit onto our flap. Okay, so let's say you had an image on your front and your back covers and type only, nothing other than type on your flap. So this is how you would set up a cover that would have a full bleed image on the front, full bleed image on the back, or some sort of a background cover that bleeds to the edges. If you have an image that goes across your front and your back and goes across your spine, then you would set it up like that. Let's say you had an image that went, it was a full bleed on the front cover, went across your spine, and went partially across your cover, like a 2/3, 1/3 kind of a layout, then that's how you would do it. Maybe your type goes over here. One thing I forgot to show you is how to put on that UPC code. So we can't forget that. We want to make sure that we put that on our book somewhere, preferably on the back cover. So I'm going to leave this background color on here just to kind of illustrate a little bit. And let's go and find that image that we downloaded earlier. So let's go to File, Place. I'm already in my Images folder, so here's that ISBN code. Click Open, and now we can position this. All right, so we can just go ahead and click and drag, and make sure it's not too big, not too small. All right, and by default it has a white background. So you're going to want that on your book also.